Hello guys, welcome back to the G Unit. I'm Super Ron, and more importantly, welcome to episode 1 of my GBS kit car build. So a few years ago, lots of my friends got into cater rooms and I went out in one, really got the bug for it, but unfortunately I couldn't afford to go out and buy a cater room, so I decided that I'd build my own. I've planned this as quite a budget build, and budget builds don't necessarily have to be cheap and tacky. It just means you're selective, you don't go to Demon Tweaks and just go click, 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 buy, buy, buy. You look around, you see what's for sale, and lucky for me, there was a lot of abandoned projects around at the time, so I scooped them all up, put them all together and made what you see here. But before that, we've got to go right back and I've got to catch you up to the beginning. But at the moment we're about 3 years into the project. It's not been progressing for 3 years, but I bought it 3 years ago and it's just been sitting here for the last couple. So I need to take you on a little history lesson to get you back to the beginning. So it was a few years ago now that all this kicked off, so I've got to catch you up to speed to where we are now. Luckily, as with all my builds, I kept it all on a blog, so I can read through this like a script to get you guys up to date. My original plan wasn't to have a GBS chassis. In fact, I'd never even heard of GBS before. I was going to build a Locust kit car from the Haynes manual, like the Haynes Roadster. So I was looking around for a Sierra donor, and Ford part prices had gone through the roof. Sierra parts were getting rarer and rarer, so you couldn't pick anything up cheap anymore. After looking around for a little while on eBay and kit car forums and other places, it seemed there was a lot of abandoned kit car projects, which seemed the best place to pick up everything that I needed. So I had a search on eBay and I looked around and I come across a abandoned Locust project. I hadn't seen it, it was a long way away, so I took a bit of a gamble. So I had a few bids on eBay and I won one for sight unseen for what I thought the Ford base parts on it were worth. So with the Auto Shack gang, we went on a little road trip up to Crewe to find out what I'd won. So I'd already won something else on eBay, so it all came together quite nicely. And we took a little detour on the way back to Aylesbury, and that was to pick up this MNR Vortx body. So it was about a 500-mile round trip, and I picked up the unfinished Locust project for £495, and I got a hell of a lot. So it was a Ron Champion book spec chassis, which had been modified with a DD-on rear end to replace the live axle, and a Sierra front hubs instead of the Cortina uprights. Overall, it looked like a copy of an MK Indy, although I've been in contact with MK and they were very helpful, but they did confirm that it was not one of their genuine chassis. So basically, it was a full rolling chassis with a ton of new parts. It had new gas coilovers all round, had a new bias pedal box with Willwood master cylinders, had a Willwood hydraulic clutch setup, it had a brand new Mark II Escort steering rack, had new poly bushes all round, it had 2-litre Sierra front brakes with new disc pad flexies, and it had Sierra Cosworth rear brakes with new disc pad flexies and handbrake cables. It had new copper lines all the way around, front to back. It had new kit car shortened prop shafts, it had a 7-inch Cosworth 4x4 LSD in the back. It had all new body panels and a set of 14-inch fore wheels with good tyres. So basically, if you stuck an engine, gearbox and fuel tank in this with a steering column, you could have a pretty fun track car for not a lot of money. But that's not really my style. I wanted something optimum, something perfect, and make the best of what we've got. The detour on the way back to Aylesbury is where we got this. It's a full body for an MNR Vortx. These are very rare and very hard to get hold of. MNR are very cagey about who they sell parts to. They only really sell things to anyone that's registered with MNR with their proper chassis. So they're going to have an absolute fit when they find out the mongrel that I'm creating. And the best part, I paid £200 and it's brand new, never been on the road. Basically, the guy was building his MNR Vortx kit and he had a change of thoughts halfway through and he decided he wanted another colour. So instead of respraying the whole thing, he found it's actually cheaper to buy a new body from MNR. So I picked up the the nose cone, bonnet, scuttle, the whole one-piece body for £200. And here is my £495 Locust 7. There we go, literally a kit car in a kit. So I bid it up to the price that I thought all the parts were worth. And in fact, I got a fantastic deal. Once I stripped it all down and saw what was there was a lot of money's worth of parts here. The chassis needed quite a bit of work, but like I said before, I was planning on chopping out what I didn't like and remaking where improvements could be. Here's a few close-ups of some of the bits that I was going to be chopping off. Some of the welding wasn't up to standard. I think the roll cage had definitely been made by someone else and just kind of grinded to fit. Not exactly what you want to roll over on. And the plates have been welded in just about. I noticed the seatbelt mountings. That was the weld that holds the seatbelts in. And the same on the other side. So, nothing out of my capabilities, but there was a lot that needed chopping up and changing on this chassis. It came rolling on some Fiesta 14-inch wheels, which got almost brand new tyres on them. It came with the shortened kit car prop shaft, and it also came with the typical Lotus 7 style body. It had been chopped about with. I don't know what engine they had in, but they'd put a huge hole in the bonnet and front nose cone. But it came with all the arches, front and rear, and the typical Caterham Lotus 7 style front end. It came all panelled up, and they'd actually used very thick aluminium for the side panels, which, as it turned out, they had a very hard time forming into the shapes. This was literally how it was left on the car, folded over like that. It's very thick, probably twice the thickness of what you'd normally use. So it's just kind of rounded round and folded on. But with the parts that I had, I was extremely happy. So over the next few months, I started chopping up the chassis, cutting off the bits that I didn't like, the bits that weren't up to my standard. I was going to go Haynes Roadster front suspension with a revised geometry, and I was going to build a full roll cage because the one that was on it, as you saw, the welding was horrendous. So that's all going to get chopped off, and I started building it into bits that would be something up to my standard. However, a few months later, the situation changed. I got in a conversation with a guy called Ron on the Locust Builders Forum. Cool name, cool guy. He had lost the love and cutting his losses with his project and was breaking it. A deal was done, and me and my dad shot up to Leicester in his stealthy Passat and trailer to pick up my new purchase. And it was the GBS Zero chassis. I did a bit of Googling because I'd never heard of them before, and it turns out they're well respected, being fantastic all-round handling and build quality. We took the trailer, loaded it up, and I was super happy with it when I saw it. The round trip was about 6 hours, but it was well worth it. The chassis was very well made, and everything fits nice, everything's welded perfectly. Not even I would have got it this nice really, and the whole thing was powder coated. I've got the full chassis, all the suspension arms, the cycle wing arms, the engine mounts, the pedal box. It's all powder coated, and the fuel tank and all the bits for £400. So it would probably have cost me that in metal to make my chassis from scratch. And here it is, my MNR Vortx bodied GBS Zero. It's the early generation 1 Ford-based kit car. But anyone that knows what GBSs look like will know this looks completely different. They're very distinctly different. The GBS normally wears the traditional coats, looking like a Caterham and that kind of kit car, Lotus 7. But as you can see, my MNR Vortx bodied has this very distinctive front end straight across radiator grills, and these kind of flared nostrils to push air past the suspension. And the thing I really like about them is they have the built-in scuttle panel, this double bubble, which is also all part of the dash. Which is something I really like about them, because people don't quite know what they are. The rear end is more or less the same, just on a GBS that would normally be an aluminium panel folded over, but with the Vortx body it is all actually one piece, all the way down to the front suspension, which makes assembly a bit tricky. It's definitely a two-person job. My plan with the car is to get it all finished off and then take it for an IVA test, because it's never been on the road, so it doesn't have an identity. I'll get it registered up. I've got all the Sierra documents for the running gear, so hopefully I'll be able to build up enough points to get it an age-related plate rather than a Q plate. Not that it makes much difference. There are some advantages for having a Q plate, but I just like the look of a normal registration, and also then I can put a private plate on it. As you can see, it's Vauxhall powered. So with the Gen V throttle bodies and some other mods I have planned, it's going to be quite a screamer. It's all linked up to a Sierra Type 9 gearbox. This is only a mock-up engine because I need to make the engine mounts, because the car was originally intended to have a Duratec, so I need to modify them for the Vauxhall. That's all things to come. So as you can see, I've stripped it right back to its bare bones, which means we can do this rebuild together right from the beginning. I've got the MNR Vortx body over there and the GBS chassis here all on its own. In all the boxes over the back, I've got the parts that came with the car. So let's have a look at them. So originally we went up to Leicester just to buy the GBS chassis and the suspension arms to go with it, just enough to get it rolling with the forward parts we already had. Once we got there, Ron had stripped everything down and he had it all in boxes, and it just made so much more sense to buy it all together to save me hunting around on eBay. He came to a great deal, and I got the impression he just wanted rid of the bits in the end, which was good news for me, so we collected everything up. Now let's have a look. So this is what we got for our £400. I've got all the suspension arms, front cycle wings, front engine mounts, all the pedals. And because he was planning to strip this down, fix the bits he wasn't happy with, and then put it all back together, he put it all in labelled boxes. Everything was in separate packets, which is a great news for me. All the rear suspension, the hubs, and the fuel tank. So it's a great deal, and the plan was to just source everything else myself. But as he'd stripped it down and got everything sitting there in boxes, it made so much more sense to get everything else GBS supply with their build. And so after a good chat, we came to an agreement, and I paid another £400 for basically everything else. We got the full light set, which I'll use for the IVA, and I'll probably change to something a bit smaller. Got the radiator and radiator fan. Got a Sierra steering column. All the switches and steering lock. We've got the GBS extended steering arm. The GBS steering wheel. We've got the lockable, breathable filler cap to go with the kit. Some gaiters. We've got a full carpet set, which was stuck in. As you can see, there's still the glue on the carpet. But we've got a full carpet set, every panel all pre-cut. We've got the dash panels. The dash I won't use because I've got the Vortx body, but the armrest and tunnel covers. We've got all the aluminium for the inside, all the bent tubes, all the covers for the master cylinder and everywhere else, and the original GBS wheels. They come with the kit. The tyres are brand new, they're Yokohamas. They are date stamped 2010, so I'm guessing that is when the build is from, because no one seemed to be able to tell me when the kit was originally bought. So that ages at about 2010, but it's never been on the road, never seen the light of day. Here you can see the Vortx body a bit better at the normal height it will be. That's actually the rear arch of the Locust, so I'll be using that. And the rest will all be MNR. So I was really pleased. I've got the full GBS kit, as you see it, for £800 there. And I've got the MNR Vortx body for £200. And all the mechanicals that I got from the Locust, the LSD, the brand new gas coilovers, all the Sierra running gear, will all bolt straight onto the GBS Zero. And so I think that pretty much wraps up the introduction to this build. As you can see, I've got lots and lots of parts all ready to go. Luckily, because I've got the complete GBS kit, it should go together quite easily, and the fact it's all been together before as a running and driving car means everything should just slot together. All the nuts and bolts are all labelled, so it shouldn't be too much hassle. The only modification I've got to make is, because this was for a Duratec engine, the engine mounts have got the Ford stud pattern for the bolt holes. So all I'm going to have to do is to get my Vauxhall red top engine in, is chop these off and weld the new base plates on. All the modifications to the MNR Vortx body have already been done. I took quite some time. There's a lot of work involved because the two chassis are very different. The MNR Vortx has a tubular chassis and it's a lot different sizes in the front and the back. The rear end is very different, so I had to do a lot of modifications here to get it all to fit on, but it fits really nicely now. I'm really happy with the body lines, how everything lines up. The nose cone sits perfectly on the front, and apart from the inboard suspension, I think you'll be very hard pushed to tell the difference between my creation and a genuine MNR. If you're new to the channel and just tuned in for the GBS content and you've liked what you've seen elsewhere with all the Vauxhalls around the place, I did do a full workshop tour, so make sure you look that up. I'll put a link in the description below. That gives you a full tour of the workshop, all the cars, a bit of history on each one, all my tools and how I ended up coming here. So make sure you look into that, and I'm going to be doing lots of episodes of this in quite good detail, because I'll use this for the same way I used to use the forums. Sometimes things are overlooked and it's always good to have a second set of eyes looking in. I am planning to have this all ready and put in for the IVA test to get it registered on the road. So if you've done an IVA test recently, or you've done one in the past and you can see anything that wouldn't get through, this kit now is 10 years old. Even though it's never been on the road, it's still 10 years old. So all the components are from the IVA test 10 years ago. So if you see anything that won't comply now, or any modifications that need to be made, or something I put on and you think, oh, that's not going to be quite getting through, just let me know. I'd rather do it now, and instead of getting through a test, failing, and then having to do it again and again, which no one likes. It'll be more content for you guys, but frustrating for me. So I've got lots of episodes to come. Like I say, the next episode is going to be the things I bought after buying the chassis. I've got a gearbox, lots of engine parts, all the bits. I'll put that in the next episode, and I'll start bolting things together so we can start seeing this as a complete car. So make sure you subscribe, because that's the most important thing. If you want to catch up on the next episode, you'll get the notifications. But until then, I hope you have fun, and I'll see you then.